From people within the fan base being concerned about where they currently sat in recruiting to a top 15 recruiting class in the nation, it has been a wild summer for the Oklahoma Sooners and Brent Venables. And today, we not only need to talk about where OU currently sits in recruiting, we also need to break down the newest addition to their class and briefly talk about some crystal ball predictions being inserted in favor of the Oklahoma Sooners. But before we can get to it all, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Y for yes, N for no. Are you excited about the way the Oklahoma Sooners are currently recruiting? Let me know what you're looking forward to happen next. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. And that doesn't just go for my channel. Those interactions seem small. They're massive to content creators, and so if you wouldn't mind, take that time, do that for your favorite content creators. It truly does make a difference. But having said all of that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, we're going to start with the newest addition for the Oklahoma Sooners, an offensive lineman that ranks as a 3-star per the 24/7 Sports Composite. But it's not going to take you long to find a ranking organization that has him as a 4-star, and of course, we're talking about Eugene Brooks, an offensive lineman that started his football career in Las Vegas before making his way to California. And though he's a 3-star, there's an important question that always needs to be asked. If you get a commitment from a guy and you're wondering, man, is this a good commitment or not? First and foremost, yes, the answer is probably an overwhelming yes. Secondly, who all has offered him? Because though depending on the recruiting service you look at, Eugene Brooks may be a 3-star, I don't believe he will finish out as a 3-star. First and foremost, just watch the film. There's a lot to like. There's a lot of upside there. He's got a high motor and he's got a lot of versatility. All things that I think will lend itself to him surging up the recruiting board. But secondly, look at the teams that are after him. And when we do, I think it tells the full story. Because it's not just Oklahoma, it's not just Texas that have offered Eugene Brooks. It's schools like Michigan State. It's schools like Florida State, USC, Georgia Tech, A&M, Oregon, Cal, Georgia, Oklahoma State, Washington State, and Arizona. So there's multiple Power 5 schools that wanted the commitment of Eugene Brooks because they view him as a very gifted prospect. I can even take it a step further. I can just zero in on two teams in particular, the two teams that were largely in this battle, the Oklahoma Sooners and the Texas Longhorns. First and foremost, anytime bitter rivals are going after the same recruit, sign me up. I think it's incredibly compelling. But secondly, who are the offensive line coaches of both Oklahoma and Texas? Well, if we look at Oklahoma, I don't have to tell you all, it's Bill Bedenbaugh. And I don't have to tell you all what Bill Bedenbaugh does with the offensive line. Every year, it's the same thing. He gets in new guys, and he just churns them out. And it seems like every single year, we could ask the question, what's Oklahoma's offensive line going to do? They lost this guy, and this guy, and every year the question is answered, causing us to not give much concern about the offensive line for the Oklahoma Sooners because Bill Bedenbaugh's earned the benefit of the doubt. But what about Texas? Who's the offensive line coach there? Well, it's just Kyle Flood. Not only one of the best offensive line recruiters in the game. I mean, I can point you to what he did at Alabama and then point you to what he did at Texas and what he's continuing to do at Texas, and it's highly impressive, but also a phenomenal offensive line coach to go along with a top-tier recruiter. If we look at what he did at Rutgers, there was a statistical increase in the offensive line's production. If we look at what he did at Alabama, the same trend can be followed, and certainly at the Texas Longhorns, where when he got there, he inherited an offensive line that was in absolute shambles, and that offensive line is now a lot better than the one that he inherited. Still steps to go, I grant you that, but it's still a work in progress. He hasn't been there 5 years. He hasn't been there long enough to completely have everything under wraps, but what we have seen is progress, and that's exactly what you want to see year in, year out. Those two guys wanted Eugene Brooks, along with all of the institutions I just listed to you. So yes, this is a guy that can genuinely play football at a high level. You can turn on the tape, find plenty you like there, but if you're busy and you don't want to turn on the tape, just look at who's been after him. And that's going to tell you a very similar story. If you look at both, the full story will come about, where you'll see this kid is probably going to end up as a 4-star. Nobody who really follows recruiting will bat an eyelash if he does. and we're going to be talking about this later, is a fantastic win, just as we're talking about this right now, that it's a fantastic win for the Oklahoma Sooners. You get a big win over the Texas Longhorns, and you get an offensive lineman that not only should your fan base be excited about, but Bill Bedenbaugh is excited about. And if Bill Bedenbaugh is excited about an offensive line prospect, the fans should be excited about an offensive line prospect. But what does this addition mean for the Sooners recruiting class, as we alluded to in the intro? Well, it puts them within the top 15 recruiting classes in the nation with commitment number 16. And that's really where you want to be. Going into August, the season right around the corner, you already have a healthy amount of players in your class. You have got a fantastic base to the class, sitting at 16 prospects. You have a great base, but you have the ability to add in more guys. You have got a lot of freedom and flexibility with the room you have left in the class, and that's why I say it's a fantastic place to be. Having 16 guys at around this stage, I think is phenomenal, especially if you can have those numbers and find yourself as a top 15 recruiting class, because once again, not to beat a dead horse, you've got a phenomenal foundation, and you've got the freedom and flexibility with the room you have left to really do some good work. And I think that gets us into the last thing we wanted to talk about, something I also alluded to in the intro. We needed to hit some crystal ball predictions that have gone in OU's favor. Well, Oklahoma has been in for some of the best defensive line talent in the class of 2024. We're talking David Stone, we're talking Winery, we're talking Dominic McKinley, we're talking Nigel Smith, and they received crystal ball predictions in their favor from none other than four-star defensive lineman out the state of Texas, an individual who will be making his collegiate decision here soon, Nigel Smith. That's going to be something we have got to keep up with, because that would be a phenomenal win for the Sooners. But one thing we've got to acknowledge, they're surging up the recruiting board. Brent Venables and staff have a style of recruiting that is different than what Oklahoma fans became accustomed to, but different does not mean bad. Brent Venables, this staff, they like to build foundations and let the ball get rolling. And it's one of those situations where if you roll a snowball down the mountain and it's fresh snow, that snowball could start very small, but as it continues, it picks up steam. So too did the Oklahoma Sooners recruiting class. As it continues, it picks up steam, gets larger and larger, and before you know it, you've got something totally different on your hands with a lot of momentum and something that's really fun to watch. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking about this edition. That's it. See ya.